Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Edgar, you were the number 2 at DHS, so your immediate boss was Secretary Noem, right?
Yes, sir.
And as I understand your testimony, you left DHS around mid-December, December 19th. So you were there when the department launched Operation Metro Surge in Minneapolis, right? You were at the department.
I was probably there when it was starting.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions about human rights and constitutional rights here at home. You would agree that the American ambassador to El Salvador or anywhere else should have a basic understanding of the U.S. Constitution. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Okay. And you would agree that the Constitution gives people in the United States the right to peacefully protest, right?
Correct.
All right. And they have the right to say things against Trump administration policy, right?
Sure.
All right. So I want to ask you about Minneapolis because 2 American protesters were shot and killed by federal agents. Renee was shot and killed. Alex Pretti was shot and killed. Your boss, your former boss, Secretary Noem, called them domestic terrorists. And yesterday, in front of the House and the day before here in the Senate, she refused to retract her statement, calling them domestic terrorists. So I have a very simple question for you today. Would you agree with me that Renee Good and Alex Pretti are not domestic terrorists?
Senator, this is an issue that doesn't involve me.
No, it does, because
How
you're
does it
going to
involve me?
be—
They were shot after I left.
You're going to be the American ambassador to El Salvador if you're confirmed. So I have an interest in your views of the Constitution and your views about what happened in Minneapolis, which all of America has got to see because it's on video. And people were shocked, including Republicans, some of them were shocked, that the Secretary of Homeland Security refused to retract a statement calling 2 American citizens peacefully protesting domestic terrorists. And I'm shocked that you refuse to say today that they're not domestic terrorists. You're refusing to confirm that they're not domestic terrorists.
Look, anytime somebody is shot and killed by law enforcement, serious issue. There should be a process to evaluate it, an investigation, and it not be predetermined.
Yeah.
So
exactly, Mr. Edgar. It should not be predetermined. So that's why I asked you whether you would agree that you shouldn't just call them domestic terrorists. Let me move on. Okay. I found it astounding. I find it astounding that you can't say here at a public hearing to be ambassador of the United States to another country that these 2 American citizens that have been shot and killed by federal agents, that they weren't domestic terrorists. I found that astounding. Now, you've also told National Public Radio, I know you say you focused on the finances, but you also told National Public Radio that a Columbia University student and legal permanent resident of the United States was justifiably locked up because of his, quote, pro-Palestinian activity, unquote. A Reagan-appointed federal judge who reviewed that case and other cases of some of these student protesters said that the Trump administration had launched a, quote, full-throated assault on the First Amendment. So I have another simple question, Mr. Edgar. Do you agree that the First Amendment protects and extends free speech rights to people who are legal permanent residents of the United States of America?
I think it does.
Okay. So it was wrong for the Trump administration to lock up a student for exercising his First Amendment rights. Let me move on. Do you agree that the right to due process extends to people residing in the United States?
I'm going to qualify both this due process and freedom of speech as I think that you've got to separate citizens, U.S. citizens, and their constitutional rights. When you have folks that are out there that are like a lawful, an LPR, permanent.
Let me just say this. This is why I asked you if an American ambassador should have an understanding of the Constitution. It is clear law that both First Amendment and due process rights extend to people residing in the United States. I just want to.
Something.
It is absolutely. Do you agree with the Supreme Court's 9-0 decision that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was wrongfully sent back to El Salvador? Do you agree with the 9-0 decision?
I'm not going to comment. I can't comment. There's a stop that we aren't supposed to make making comments because it's still under pending litigation.
No. This is a 9-0. This part of the case is closed.
Yeah.
That was a Supreme Court decision. Do you agree that it was illegal to send Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to El Salvador?
I think that it's been admitted already by ICE there was an administrative error. So I think that's
Right.
fact.
So you agree with the Supreme Court decision? I'm just looking for some, constitutional provision that you agree with. And I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, in closing, my colleagues have asked you about human rights in El Salvador. You're talking about the president of El Salvador. He calls himself the world's coolest dictator. There are ample reports, and I would like unanimous consent to enter them into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
About gross human rights violations in El Salvador, including in CICOT, where you sent Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And I also want to include the Cato Institute document entitled 50-plus Venezuelans imprisoned in El Salvador came to the United States legally, never violated immigration law. The Cato Institute is not some sort of lefty organization. They believe in freedom. And unfortunately, you've been a part of administration that's taking away Americans' rights to freedom here at home, due process rights, as well as First Amendment rights. And it is hard to trust you, therefore, that you'll stand up for important American principles, as our American ambassador to El Salvador have confirmed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.